The moment I jumped off the hospital rooftop, I landed right in front of Lu Ruin. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just wrapped her arms around Chu Mingyu, the man who'd actually fallen, and pulled him tight against her chest, frowning as she spat out 2 words, "How unlucky." Then she turned and walked away, cold as ice, holding on to him. After that, I became a ghost, drifting beside Lu Ruyan for years. I watched her marry Chu Mingyu, have his child, and then watched the 2 of them tear their life apart fighting. Even so, she kept spoiling him, right up until a parade of men who looked just like me started showing up around him, and she'd sit there for entire days watching them play. On the 8th anniversary of my jump, Chu Mingyu finally showed his true colors and burned her alive in their mansion. She died. He took her fortune and used it to keep other women. I threw everything I had into reaching her grave, pointed at the headstone, and laughed. "See, Liu Ruyan? I told you Chu Mingyu was a bloodsucker. You just wouldn't listen." I shot awake, staring at the ceiling above my bed. 3 a.m. I pressed a hand to my racing heart, gasping for air. I was alive. That long, brutally real nightmare had just been a dream. I let out a breath, wiped the cold sweat off my forehead, and cursed under my breath. Thank God I hadn't actually died, because back then, I really had loved Liu Ruyan like she was my whole life. Just yesterday, in this new timeline, I'd already thrown a whole scene, crying, screaming, threatening to hang myself over her. In a few days, I'd turn 20, and Grandpa G was planning to announce my engagement to Liu Ruyan at the birthday banquet. But Grandpa refused to budge, insisting the Liu family's reputation was rotten and that Liu Ruyan kept a rotating cast of shady men around her. Back then, though, I'd been so blinded I swore I'd marry no one else. Remembering the nightmare, remembering how she'd driven me to jump, I threw off my blanket and ran barefoot into Grandpa's room. The old man was fast asleep. His blanket slipped to the floor. I picked it up, tucked it back over him, and crouched by the bed, my eyes stinging. "Hey! Hey!" He jolted awake, saw a huge face hovering over his bed, and nearly jumped out of his skin. "Bada! Are you trying to give me a heart attack in the middle of the night?" My nose went sore, and I just hugged his leg. Grandpa sighed and patted my head. All right, stop wailing. Tomorrow I'll swallow my pride and go settle things with the Liu family myself." A jolt of alarm shot through me, and I cut the tears off instantly, because in the dream, that's exactly how I'd worn him down before. But 3 years after the engagement, Liu Ruyan had called it off. In the dream, it was Yaksha who'd shattered my legs on her orders, grinding her boot into my face, eyes like knives. "What do you think you are? You dared to touch her reputation. I'll cripple both your legs today. Let's see what you used to hurt her after this." A chill shot up my spine. I stood up abruptly and looked Grandpa dead in the eye. "Grandpa, I'm not marrying Liu Ruyan. I don't love her. I only made a bet with Ratty." I swallowed and spun a lie. "If I can land Liu Ruyan, Ratty owes me a discontinued RTX 5090 graphics card." Grandpa froze, then burst out laughing, smacking me on the back of the head. "A busted graphics card, and you'd gamble your whole life on it?" I kept my head down and said nothing. He laughed so hard tears came to his eyes. "Tomorrow I'll wire you 5 million. Buy whatever card you want. Forget the engagement." I nodded hard. With money in hand, why would I still grovel for her? Grandpa let out a long breath and went back to his room. I scooped up Warrior, my golden retriever, off the floor. My phone buzzed. The screen lit up. Zhao Mei, my biological mother, the one who cheated and got kicked out of the family. I picked up. A cold, flat voice came through. "I heard you're getting engaged to Liu Ruyan." I scoffed. "Is that the only reason you're haunting me at this hour?" She paused, then said, almost dreamily, "You two aren't a good match. Her heart only ever belonged to Chu Ming. I know that already. Right now I just want to make her furious. Won't know unless I try. She likes obedient men like me. If you want to stop me, go ahead. And if she ever ends up destroying you, I'll buy a string of firecrackers to celebrate." I hung up before she could say more. I lay on the rug, rubbing Warrior's belly. "Warrior, from now on, I'm done being anybody's lapdog. We're gonna live good and live long. 99, easy." The next morning I got up early, changed into workout clothes, and took Warrior out. I had a session booked with a boxing coach. In the dream, it had been Muay Thai. I needed to raise my combat level. On the way past the front yard, I stopped in front of a stretch of blue maple trees. In my old life, hearing that Liu Ruyan's favorite blue maples had been cut down by Chu Mingyu and that she'd cried over it, I'd bought saplings overnight and planted a whole grove in my own yard, conveniently facing her villa's window. Looking at those flowers now, all I felt was disgust. I walked over, grabbed the trunks, and yanked them out roots and all, tossing them one after another into the trash bin. I clapped the dirt off my hands and looked up, right into a gaze from the second-floor balcony across the way. Liu Ruyan stood there in a silk robe, coffee in hand, her expression dark enough to drip. That look. It was identical to the one she'd worn while breaking my legs in the dream. I turned away and whistled. I just pulled my SUV out of the gate when I saw Liu Ruyan standing in the middle of the road in a tailored designer suit, bag in hand, blocking my way. I honked. She didn't move. Irritation flared and I rolled down the window. "Miss Liu, trying to get hit on purpose?" She walked over and looked down at me. "My car's in the shop. Drive me to the office. Not on my way." I flat out refused. "I'll call you a cab." "No need." She yanked the door open and slid into the passenger seat, sitting close enough that her perfume flooded straight into my nose. My stomach turned as the dream flashed back. Every way she'd tormented me, and my knuckles whitened on the wheel. I raked a hand through my hair. "Liu Ruyan, I'm changing my schedule." She studied me with something sharp in her eyes. "Where are you headed? What's that got to do with me? Just drive." Warrior started barking wildly from the back seat. Liu Ruyan flinched, brows knitting hard. "Throw the dog out, or drop me at the subway entrance up front." Without hesitation, I floored it. The SUV shot forward like something feral. At rush hour, downtown, I drove like it was a rally race. Back in the old life, I'd never even dared brake hard around her. "Jibata, are you insane? Slow down!" She grabbed her seatbelt, face draining of color. I glanced coldly at the mirror. "If it's too fast for you, get out." 5 minutes later, I slammed the brakes and stopped dead outside the subway entrance. "We're here. Out." Face like thunder, she shoved the door open, teeth gritted. "Jibata, I don't like men who lose control. Not my problem." The door slammed. I floored it again, exhaust fumes trailing behind. She stood there, gripping her bag so hard her knuckles went white, eyes full of cold fury. A Maybach pulled up beside her. An assistant hopped out to open the door. "Miss Liu, this way." Up in the Liu Corporation's top floor office, the secretary carefully set a velvet box on the desk. "Miss Liu, this is the engagement ring set you had custom made half a year ago." Liu Ruyan opened it. 2 one-of-a-kind diamond rings. But looking at them, all she could picture was my face that morning, ripping up the flowers, racing through traffic, ice cold. Irritation surged through her. Her phone buzzed. The screen read, "Chu Mingyu," she answered, softening her voice. "Hey, Mingyu. Ruyan, I heard you're getting engaged to Jibata." Chu Mingyu's voice on the other end carried a strained, tearful edge. Liu Ruyan leaned back, pinching the bridge of her nose. "Ruyan, don't gamble your whole happiness out of spite, all right? Jibata doesn't deserve you." His voice sharpened. Her eyes went cold. "Mingyu, this isn't your business. He's obedient, sensible. He's the most suitable match." "Obedient? Sensible?" Chu Mingyu let out a sharp laugh. "Ruyan, he's played you. You think he loves you? You think he planted those blue maples for you?" The hand holding her cigarette froze. "What do you mean?" Chu Mingyu sneered. "Last night at the bar, I heard his best friend Ratty bragging with my own ears. Jibata only agreed to the marriage because of a bet, not love." The stake was some busted computer graphics card. Crack. The lighter in her hand snapped in half, plastic shards biting into her palm, drawing blood. "What did you just say? He's a liar. He's using you as a tool to win a graphics card." She hung up on him instantly, staring at the engagement ring on the desk, chest heaving. She'd read countless people in her life. How could she have misjudged this one? Every time Jibata looked at her, his eyes had been full of devotion and longing. But now this morning's strange behavior, the uprooted flowers, the cold stare, all made perfect sense. He didn't love her. Or rather, he thought he'd already won the bet and couldn't be bothered pretending anymore. Fine. Very well. Liu Ruyan let out a cold laugh, fury churning underneath. "Jibata, since you dared to bet on me, I'll play this out with you to the end. 3 months. I'll make you fall for me like a dog, make you beg on your knees to marry me, and then, on the day of our engagement, I'll grind you into the dirt." She grabbed her coat and stormed out of the office. "Send word. Buy out every gaming company in Ratty's family business. I want that graphics card brand gone from the market by tomorrow." Meanwhile, at the underground fight club, I landed a brutal left hook that sent Pei Lian crashing into the ropes. Thud. He slid to the floor, spitting blood, staring at me in terror. I wiped my sweat, eyes hard. Too weak. Send someone who can actually fight. If even your boss can't beat me, this club might as well shut down. Pei Lian, trembling, fumbled out his phone and dialed. Boss, someone's tearing the place up. Yeah, it's that young master from the G family. A low, amused female voice came through the phone. So she's finally quit playing lapdog and turned into a mad dog instead. Lock the doors. I'll go meet her myself. The moment I heard that voice, my blood ran cold. That voice. I'd never forget it as long as I lived. In the dream, it was her who'd handed Lu Ruyan the iron bar that shattered my legs. I stared at the door as it swung open. In walked a woman in a black fitted vest and combat boots, short hair, eyes like a wolf's, the uncrowned queen of the underground fight scene and Lu Ruyan's most ruthless enforcer, Yaksha. In the dream, while Lu Ruyan broke my legs, Yaksha had stood by smoking, laughing. Boss, these bones are brittle. A couple more hits and they'll turn to dust. My fists clenched, knuckles cracking. Little Master G's got quite the temper. Yaksha vaulted onto the platform, spat out her gum, rolled her neck. Heard you thought my people were too soft. I didn't waste words. I pushed off the ground and launched myself forward like a cannon shell. No feints, straight for the kill. A whipping kick tore through the air toward her temple. Her eyes flickered. She dodged just in time. Crack. The impact echoed through the whole club. She staggered back half a step, a red mark already blooming on her forearm. Interesting. She licked the corner of her mouth, eyes lighting up with excitement. Seems Lou misjudged you. You're no lapdog. You're a mad wolf. Shut up. I closed in again. Elbow, knee, hook, every strike aimed to kill. The remembered agony of my shattered legs screamed through my nerves, and I poured every ounce of fear and hatred into my fists. We traded blows in a frenzy for 5 straight minutes. Finally, gasping for breath, blood leaking from the corner of my mouth, I was in better shape than she was. She'd taken a hard shoulder throw and hadn't gotten up for a while. I walked over and planted a foot on her chest, looking down at her. Go tell Lu Ruyan to stop provoking me. Otherwise, next time, it'll be her legs that break. Coughing up blood, Yaksha laughed like a maniac. Jibata, you think you can just walk away? Boss just gave the order. Full blockade on your buddy Ratty's whole business. You won the card, but you just lost your brother's lifeline. My pupils constricted. Lu Ruyan. That mad woman. I yanked my foot back, grabbed my jacket, and bolted. The second I ran out of the club, a row of black Mercedes SUVs blocked off the alley. A door opened, and Lu Ruyan stepped out in a black trench coat and heels, bodyguards instantly surrounding me. She walked up close, looked at the blood on my lip, and reached out as if to wipe it away. I turned my face aside coldly, stepping back. Don't touch me. Her hand froze midair, something flickering in her eyes before she withdrew it, laughing coldly. Jibata. Grown some nerve, haven't you? Daring to play me for a broken graphics card. So what if I did? I stared straight into her eyes. I'm not marrying you. I'm done with the bet too. Leave Ratty's family alone. She stepped closer, almost nose to nose, her warm breath brushing my face, voice icy. You think you're something? Since the game started, only I get to call it off. She grabbed my collar and shoved me against the car door. 3 months. Within 3 months, I'll have you on your knees begging me to marry you. If you don't believe it, watch and see. I looked at her face, so close to mine, and suddenly laughed. Lu Ruyan, are you out of your mind? I knocked her hand away and straightened my collar. Just looking at you makes me sick now. Beg you? Keep dreaming. With that, chilled to the bone, she immediately cut off every last line of funding to my company. She wanted me crawling to her, empty-handed, by tomorrow morning. Less than 10 minutes after I left the alley, my phone started buzzing frantically. The screen flashed, Ratty, I answered. The sound of shattering glass mixed with cursing blasted straight into my ear. Bada! That madwoman Lu Ruyan just made her move! Ratty's voice was hoarse, exhaustion bleeding through. I slammed on the brakes, tires screeching against the asphalt as the SUV pulled over. Talk. What happened? Half an hour ago, Liu Corporation's legal team stormed my company with people. They teamed up with a few venture firms and forced through a hostile buyout. My cash flow was already tight, and now it's completely cut off. Ratty lit a cigarette on the other end, the click of his lighter unnervingly clear. It's not just me. Several of Ratty Tech's big projects just had their funding pulled by Liu Ruyan unilaterally. The banks are all calling for repayment. My chest felt like it was stuffed with a waterlogged sponge. We grew up wearing the same split-seam pants. And you're apologizing to me for this? I never liked that woman. Does she really think money lets her run this whole city? Noise in the background, people pushing for signatures. Ratty took a deep drag, his voice turning fierce. Bada, listen to me. Even if I have to sell everything I own and go bankrupt, even if I end up hawking phone screen protectors under a bridge, I will not let you crawl back to that madwoman. If you dare, go back and grovel to her. I'm done with you. Before I could respond, he hung up. Listening to the dial tone, I slammed a fist into the steering wheel. The horn let out a shriek. Liu Ruyan, you really don't hold back. Back at the G family estate, the atmosphere in the courtyard was suffocating. Grandpa sat in the main hall, rolling 2 walnuts in his palm, while several branch company heads stood off to the side, sweating bullets. Old Master, the Liu family is going straight for the throat. Once the cash flow dries up, G stock is going to hit the floor limit tomorrow. Right. Word is, Miss Liu said, if the young master's willing to apologize, everything can still be discussed. I strode through the door and every one of them went silent, eyes darting away. Everyone out. Grandpa didn't even lift his eyelids, voice booming. They scattered like they'd been granted a pardon. Once it was just the 2 of us in the hall, I walked up to Grandpa and dropped to my knees on the stone floor. Grandpa, I've caused real trouble. He stopped rolling the walnuts, his cloudy eyes studying me for a long moment. He stood, walked over, and kicked me in the shoulder. Not hard, but enough to knock me down onto the floor. You useless brat. Willing to die for some woman, and you never once thought about the G family's name? He scoffed, then yanked a black card from a drawer and tossed it into my lap. The G family isn't finished yet. This little storm, this old man can still weather it. Take the money, patch up the hole in Ratty's business. A G-man never lets a brother down. I gripped the card, still warm from his hand, eyes burning. Grandpa, I will never bow to him. Then get up and do what needs doing. If the sky falls, I'll hold it up. The next morning at 10, Liu Corporation's headquarters was decked out like a grand celebration. The media hall on the first floor was packed wall to wall with cameras. Every notable outlet in the city had been invited. The big screen looped an announcement of Liu Corporation's acquisition of the gaming industry sector. I stood outside on the front steps in a black tactical jacket, warrior on his leash. He seemed to sense my mood, a low growl rumbling in his throat, eyes locked on the security guards at the door. 4 hulking men in black instantly blocked my path. Their leader looked at me with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Miss Liu's orders. If the young master wants into the press conference, he reads this apology statement at the door first. He held out a sheet of paper packed with humiliating phrases. Young and foolish, offended Miss Liu, begging forgiveness. I looked at the paper and scoffed. Is this really all Liu Ruyan's got? I let go of the leash. Warrior lunged at the lead guard with a furious bark, 100+ pounds of pure golden retriever, explosive as hell. The guard staggered back, terrified, and sat down hard on the steps. In the chaos, I kicked the guard next to me straight in the back of the knee. He dropped with a scream. I picked the leash back up, stepped over the fallen guard's shoulder, and strode through the revolving glass doors. The media hall went dead silent. Countless flashes turned toward me. In the center of the hall, on a leather sofa, sat Liu Ruyan in a perfectly tailored wine-red designer suit, legs crossed, sipping black coffee, looking down at me from her seat. Chu Mingyu sat beside her, a little behind, eyes gleaming with barely hidden schadenfreude and excitement. Jibata, you actually dared to come. Liu Ruyan took a sip of coffee and set the cup down hard, the porcelain clicking sharply against the saucer. I walked Warrior right up to within 3 meters of her and stopped. You threw such a big production to invite me? Wouldn't showing up be the polite thing to do? Jibata, this is what happens when you cross me. Liu Ruyan lowered her voice, arrogance dripping from every word. She pointed at the red carpet laid out in the center of the hall. Now, kneel. In front of every camera here, admit you were wrong and beg me to marry you. If I'm in a good enough mood, maybe I'll spare your buddy Ratty's business. Flashes went off in a frenzy all around. The reporters pressed forward like sharks smelling blood. Behind her, Chu Mingyu chimed in mockingly. Little master, lowering your head costs you nothing. Miss Liu's already being more than generous with you. Don't push your luck. I looked at Liu Ruyan's polished, heartless face, and the memory of my shattered legs surged back. I burst out laughing, loud enough it echoed through the hall and made everyone flinch. Liu Ruyan, have you lost your mind? I cut the laugh off abruptly and stared her down. You really think a little dirty money buys everyone's backbone? I came here today to say one thing in front of the whole internet. I pointed straight at her, spelling it out word by word. Even if I starved to death, even if I jumped off this building right now, I would never marry a rotten woman like you. You disgust me. The whole room erupted. Camera shutters came down like a rainstorm. Liu Ruyan's face went dead, white, fury boiling just under the surface. She wasn't used to my obedience being anywhere but absolute, and she couldn't stomach this kind of public humiliation. Fine. Very well. She ground her teeth, chest heaving. Since you want to die so badly, I'll grant your wish. She threw up a hand. Security. Hold her down. If she won't kneel today, break her legs. 12+ guards with batons swarmed in from every direction. Warrior let out a deafening bark, throwing himself in front of me protectively. I stripped off my jacket and wrapped it around my arm, dropping into a fighting stance. Right at that razor's edge, a deafening roar suddenly rumbled overhead, growing louder, like the whole building was shaking. Outside the hall's massive floor-to-ceiling windows, a violent wind kicked up. Trees bent sideways, parked cars in the plaza shook like something possessed. Everyone turned in shock. A black, heavy 4-seater helicopter, its fuselage stamped with a gold-embossed Su emblem, hovered with crushing presence right outside Liu Corporation above the plaza. The rotor wash tore an advertising board clean off the wall outside. The helicopter touched down smoothly. The cabin door slammed open, and 2 rows of top-tier bodyguards in black suits and sunglasses leapt out in perfect unison, sealing off both sides of the red carpet in an instant. The Liu family's own security, next to these men, looked like poorly trained house pets, driven backward without a fight. Then a pair of heels studded with tiny gems stepped out of the cabin. Su Rokshu, the sole heir of the Su family, the top financial dynasty in the city's inner circle, the woman rumored to control more than half the world's liquid capital, whose slightest stomp could send the entire business world into an earthquake. She wore a sleek black trench coat over a dark red silk dress underneath, her long hair whipping wildly in the wind like seaweed. Behind a pair of oversized sunglasses, her stunning face radiated an icy, untouchable distance. The hall fell dead, silent, save for the winding down whine of the helicopter blades. Liu Ruyan froze completely, unconsciously taking half a step forward, her once arrogant gaze flooding with shock and something close to fear. A president of her caliber wasn't even fit to carry Su Rokshu's shoes. Su Rokshu took off her sunglasses, tossing them back to an assistant without a glance. She walked the red carpet, flanked by bodyguards, unhurried, straight into the hall. The crowd parted on its own, clearing a wide path. Nobody dared stand in her way. Her gaze swept the room once, then landed, with perfect precision, on me. In that instant, I clearly caught something flicker through her once icy eyes. Something like the wild joy of recovering something long lost, or a devotion carved deep enough to survive death itself. She strode straight up to me before I could even react, a cold wave of cedar and pine perfume hitting me first. Then, completely naturally, she reached out and hooked her arm tightly around mine. Her movement was forceful, commanding, yet with the faintest, barely detectable tremble underneath. Warrior, of all things, didn't bark. He just leaned into her, nuzzling her leg. The whole room sucked in a breath. The flashes went completely feral. Liu Ruyan's eyes looked ready to pop out of her skull. She pointed at a stack of documents her lawyer had just slapped down on the coffee table in front of Liu Ruyan. Miss Liu, this is the acquisition contract. The lawyer pushed up his gold-rimmed glasses, tone perfectly flat. Su Capital completed a reverse acquisition of all of Liu Corporation's gaming assets an hour ago through secondary market maneuvers and targeted share placements. Not only that, Miss Su has already injected $10 billion in cash into Mr. Ratty's company. As of now, the Su family owns 51% of it. Liu Ruyan looked like she'd been struck by lightning. She snatched the documents off the table, flipping through them frantically. Impossible. $10 billion in liquid capital. How could you possibly mobilize that in such a short time? Her face went ghostly pale, her hand shook, and the coffee cup beside her toppled over, black liquid spilling across the table and down the front of her expensive designer suit. Utterly humiliating. Chu Mingyu shrank into the corner of the sofa, not even daring to breathe too loudly. Su Rokshu finally turned her head, sparing Liu Ruyan one cold glance, the kind you'd give a pile of garbage. In this city's inner circle, there's nothing the Su family can't do. Her voice was soft, but carried an authority that brooked no argument. She turned to face the sea of cameras, tightening her grip on my arm, tilting her chin up slightly, and every word out of her mouth landed like a bomb. Everyone, listen up. Jibata is the man I, Su Rokshu, protect. If she wants to play games, I'll buy the whole industry to play with her. If she wants to protect her brother, I'll drop 10 billion to back her up. Her gaze turned sharp as lightning, cutting straight into Liu Ruyan. Whoever dares touch a hair on her head is picking a fight with the entire Su family. Liu Ruyan, you want to try me? Domineering, blazing. Standing this close to Su Rokshu, I realized. I had no idea who she was. I combed through every memory I had, including all 8 years of that nightmare, and I was certain I'd never crossed paths with this untouchable heiress before. And yet, right now, looking up at me, her beautiful eyes had none of the coldness she'd shown the cameras. There was a shimmer in them, laced with something that felt like devotion carrying across life and death itself. She rose onto her toes, her warm breath brushing my ear. Jibata, I finally found you. Her voice was barely a whisper, catching slightly. Before I could ask her anything, I chased the momentum. I pulled in 3 of the market's top esports development teams and founded Daybreak Technologies on the spot. Since I was living this life again, I wasn't going to be anyone's lapdog. This time, I'd be the wolf that eats people. I leveraged Ratty's connections along with Su family capital to strike precisely at the heart of Liu Corporation's core market. Liu Ruyan tried stealing my brother's supply chain. I bought out all her upstream channels at double the price. She tried to steady the stock. I had traders shorted into the ground on the secondary market. In just 15 days, Liu Corporation's market value evaporated by a third. I sat in my new office chair, staring at the market chart on the wall, when Ratty burst through the door, slamming a report on my desk, grinning ear to ear. Bada! It's insane! Our new system just stole 40% of Liu Corp's market share. That madwoman Liu Ruyan called an emergency executive meeting last night. Word is she smashed 3 cups. Liu stock hit the floor limit again at open today. I took a sip of black coffee, bitterness spreading across my tongue, eyes hardening. This is nothing yet. Cut off her cash flow, and Chu Mingyu, that leech, loses his allowance. A man like him without money is worse off than dead. Sure enough, Chu Mingyu couldn't sit still. That afternoon, a gold-embossed invitation arrived at the front desk, a charity gala for the city's elite. My phone buzzed, an unknown number. I answered, and Chu Mingyu's signature saccharine voice came through. Little master, got the invitation? Ruyan's been stressed lately over company troubles, so I threw this gala together to help her unwind. You've come up in the world. Surely you won't refuse this small courtesy? I leaned back in my chair. Idiot. Not worth the words. I hung up. The office door opened. Su Rokshu walked in on her heels, dressed today in a crisp silver-gray business suit, hair tied back, tossing a mini USB drive in her palm. Chu Mingyu's call? I nodded. A hostile setup. This bastard probably wants to spring a trap on me with all the city's elite watching. Go, then. Why not? Su Rokshu laughed coldly, dropping the drive on the desk with a sharp clack. I just had someone dig into Chu Mingyu's background. The garbage he's been pulling behind Liu Ruyan's back could fill an 80-episode drama. Tonight, let's go watch the show. Looking at the cold gleam in her eyes, I suddenly realized, when this woman decided to go all out, nobody else really stood a chance. At 8 p.m., the rooftop banquet hall of the Qinghai International Hotel. The second Su Rokshu and I walked in, the once lively hall went quiet for a few seconds, every eye sweeping toward us. Su Rokshu kept her arm hooked through mine, radiating full presence like a queen surveying her territory. Not far off, in the lounge area, Liu Ruyan sat with a flute of champagne, her expression darker than the sky before a storm, eyes locked on our linked arms, knuckles white with tension. Chu Mingyu stood beside her, a flash of venom crossing his eyes before he swapped in a wounded expression and leaned in to whisper something in her ear. Her face only grew darker, as if she might devour someone whole. Ignoring them, I grabbed a glass of red wine from a passing tray and walked out onto the second-floor terrace for some air. I'd just lit a cigarette when the glass door behind me opened. Jibata! Feeling pretty confident you've already won, aren't you? Chu Mingyu walked up, wine glass in hand, the pitiful mask he usually wore completely gone, replaced by open, twisted malice. I exhaled a smoke ring and looked her up and down. Look at that. Liu Ruyan's credit card got frozen, and you're still wearing last year's suit. What, the free ride's drying up and you can't stomach it? That landed square on his sore spot. His features twisted for a second, and he stepped in closer. Don't get cocky. Ruyan's just going through a rough patch. As long as I'm around, she'll never so much as look at you. Even with Su Rokshu backing you, in Ruyan's eyes, you're still not fit to carry my shoes. I flicked ash off my cigarette, watching him perform like a clown on stage. In the dream, she'd worn this same superior sneer while grinding her heel into my broken legs. But now, all he could do was hide his panic behind cheap insults. Done talking? Then get lost. You're an eyesore. Chu Mingyu suddenly smiled in an unsettling way. He glanced around, made sure no one was near, and quickly reached into his jacket pocket. My eyes narrowed, muscles going tense, thinking he was pulling out a weapon. Instead, he pulled out 2 small fast food packets of ketchup. Before my stunned eyes, he tore them open without hesitation and smeared the red sauce across his own forehead and cheeks. Then he grabbed his own collar and yanked hard, buttons popping off. Ah! Jibata, what are you doing? Help! Somebody help! He let out a blood-curdling scream and threw himself backward. The terrace connected to a spiral staircase, a dozen-plus steps down, and he tumbled down it like a sack of garbage. Thud. He crashed onto the carpet in the first-floor lobby, clutching his head, writhing on the ground, fake blood streaking down his face through his fingers. The whole hall erupted. The music cut off. The elite guests scattered, gasping. Mingyu! A sharp, anguished scream tore through the hall. Liu Ruyan shoved through the crowd like a madwoman, half running, half crawling to his side. Mingyu, are you okay? Say something! Her hands trembled, not even daring to touch his blood-streaked face. Chu Mingyu weakly opened his eyes, tears streaming down in fat drops. He raised a shaking hand and pointed up at me, standing at the top of the stairs. Ruyan, I only wanted to talk him into leaving the company alone. He suddenly lost it, called me a kept man, and pushed me down the stairs. My head hurts. His head lolled to the side, eyes closing as he played dead. Liu Ruyan's head snapped up, eyes bloodshot, glaring at me with a look that wanted to tear me apart. She stormed to the bottom of the stairs on her heels and pointed at my nose, screaming, Jibata, you animal! Mingyu's health was already fragile, and you went that far? You think just because the Su family's backing you, you can burn this whole city down? I stood on the steps, looking down at this woman I'd once treasured above everything, feeling nothing but nausea. Liu Ruyan, did you leave your brain at home? Look at that blood. Smell it. Then talk. Still want to argue? Liu Ruyan completely lost it, whipping around towards security. Call the police! Call them right now! I want her exposed, stripped bare. I want her to pay with her life for Mingyu. All around, the elite guests murmured and pointed, the whispers growing louder. I dug at my ear, not even bothering to explain. Wasting words on this kind of stupidity wasn't worth the breath. Right then, a crisp clicking of heels came from the other side of the hall, unhurried, but carrying an overwhelming presence. Su Rokshu walked calmly toward the center of the crowd, wine glass in hand, not even sparing a glance at Chu Mingyu on the floor, locking eyes directly with Liu Ruyan's blazing glare. Miss Liu's got quite the temper, throwing around threats to strip my man bare at the drop of a hat. Su Rokshu laughed lightly, swirling the wine in her glass, the deep red liquid catching the light with an icy shimmer. In front of everyone, HM? She arched a brow. Then let's all watch together. Exactly how in front of everyone this is going to get. She handed her glass off to an assistant behind her without looking, pulled a small black terminal from her handbag, and tapped the screen a few times. The massive LED screen on the main stage flickered, and the charity promo video vanished, replaced instantly by a 4-way split of high-definition security footage. This hotel's security system, as it happened, ran on Sutek's core architecture. Su Rokshu looked up, flashing Liu Ruyan a deeply mocking smile. Miss Liu, here's something fun. She hit play. The footage on the big screen was crystal clear, even the audio perfectly captured. In it, me on the terrace, smoking, Chu Mingyu sauntering over to provoke me. Then him glancing around, pulling ketchup packets from his pocket. The screen even thoughtfully zoomed in for a close-up as he tore them open and smeared the sauce across his own face, ripped his own collar, let out a scream, and threw himself backward with theatrical flair. One smooth, uninterrupted motion. The footage froze on his twisted, absurd expression mid-smear. Dead silence swept the entire hall. 3 seconds later, somebody failed to hold it in and burst out laughing. Then the whole room erupted into full-blown hysterics. "Oh my God! Ketchup! This guy deserves an Oscar!" Tore his own shirt and fell down the stairs himself. That's some next-level grifting. "I'm dying. How did Miss Liu end up with such a specimen?" The laughter crashed over Lu Ruyan like a tidal wave. She stood frozen, her fury instantly locking into pure, stunned mortification. On the floor, Chu Mingyu's eyes snapped open. He watched the footage looping on the big screen, his face draining white, scrambling to get up. "No, it's not what it looks like! Ruyan, let me explain. That footage is fake! They doctored it!" He lunged, incoherent, grabbing at the hem of Lu Ruyan's dress. She instinctively stepped back, dodging his hand, looking down at the puddle of sickly sweet-smelling blood on the floor, her stomach turning. I walked down the stairs and stopped in front of Chu Mingyu. "Footage can be faked. What about these?" I raised my hand and slammed a thick file folder straight into his face. Crack. The folder burst open. Hundreds of photos, printed statements, explicit chat screenshots, all fluttering down like snow, scattering across Lu Ruyan's feet. I pointed at the papers on the ground, my voice cold as ice. "Chu Mingyu, you've been using the allowance Lu Ruyan gives you to keep 5 different women on the side, all at once. A villa in the Southern District, a yacht at the harbor, all reimbursed through Lu Corporation's company accounts. You even had the Hermes bags you bought them shipped to Lu headquarters." With every sentence, his body flinched harder. Lu Ruyan stood frozen stiff. Slowly, she looked down at a chat screenshot that had drifted right to the tip of his shoe. In the photo, Chu Mingyu had his arm around a scantily dressed woman, the caption reading, "Babe, that idiot Lu Ruyan wired me money again. Usual spot tonight." Beside it, a bank transfer record. 5 million, dated the exact day Lu Corporation's cash flow snapped, and she'd been scrambling everywhere for help. Not only that, Su Rokshu stepped up, standing shoulder to shoulder with me, delivering the final, coldest blow. "Miss Liu, you probably don't know this either. Half a month ago, Chu Mingyu lost 30 million at a Macau casino. That money came from a high-interest loan, using several properties under your name as collateral. Do the math on the timing. The collectors should be hanging banners outside Lu Corporation by tomorrow." All color drained from Lu Ruyan's face. Her lips trembled violently, a strangled, choking sound catching in her throat, but no words came out. The love she'd been so proud of, the man she'd fought tooth and nail, even at the cost of angering the entire G family, to protect, had just been stripped bare, without even the dignity of underwear left. "Ruyan, don't listen to their nonsense. I was set up. I love you, Ruyan." Chu Mingyu completely broke down, throwing himself at her, clutching her head, sobbing a mess of tears and snot. Lu Ruyan didn't move. She stared down, transfixed, at the evidence scattered across the floor. Every one of those obscene photos and statements, a blade slicing apart the faith she'd built over years. Slowly, she raised her head and looked at Chu Mingyu. The tenderness and heartache that used to fill her eyes were gone, replaced by something bone-chillingly unfamiliar. Shock and a suspicion spreading wildly out of control. Looking at the man she'd once guarded with her life, a terrifying thought suddenly flashed through her mind. If all of this was true, then why had Chu Mingyu really stayed by her side all this time? All those schemes against the G family, all that supposed grievance. Just how deep did the calculation behind it go? Lu Ruyan abruptly kicked Chu Mingyu square in the chest, her sharp stiletto heel tearing a gash straight through his expensive custom shirt. Trembling all over, she didn't even grab her limited edition handbag lying on the floor. She just stumbled, staggering, out of the banquet hall. I watched the whole scene coldly, swirling the wine in my glass, then tipped my head back and drained it in one go. Su Rokshu tilted her head, leaning in to whisper by my ear. "The real show's only just getting started." That night, at the VIP ward of Jinghai City's first hospital, Lu Ruyan's fever spiked to 40 degrees Celsius, and she sank into an endless nightmare. The dream played out like an inescapable purgatory. Roaring flames swallowed the entire mansion whole, scorching heat licking at her skin. Chu Mingyu stood outside the door, tossing a solid gold lighter in his hand, his once gentle face twisted into something demonic. "Old woman, I've already moved all your money out. Die in peace." He laughed, wild and unhinged, then turned and got into a sports car with some young girl on his arm. A beam crashed down. Flames engulfed her. Pinned beneath the rubble, Thick smoke filling her lungs, she waited for death in despair. And then the villa's rickety iron gate, on the verge of collapse, was smashed open by sheer brute force. I crawled toward her through the fire, covered in blood, dragging the leg she herself had shattered. My clothes were burned through, skin peeling back, a horrifying trail of blood dragging behind me. With everything I had left, I used my own body to hold up a burning wooden beam, shielding her beneath me. Ruyan, don't be afraid. I'll get you out. No! Lu Ruyan shot up from the hospital bed, screaming, her silk pajamas drenched in cold sweat, her heart seizing violently as if crushed by an invisible fist. She gasped for air, the image of me burning to charcoal in the flames still seared behind her eyes. It hadn't felt like a dream. It had felt like some deeply buried memory finally surfacing, real enough to shatter her. Shaking, she grabbed the phone off the nightstand and called 4 private investigators. Investigate. Dig up everything on Chu Mingyu from the past several years. Turn it all inside out. I don't care if you have to tear the earth apart. Find me the ledgers. 3 days later, a thick file folder landed on the table by her hospital bed. Photos the investigators had taken lay scattered on top. Men whose eyebrows, build, even the tone of their voices had all been deliberately shaped to mimic me. Behind closed doors, Chu Mingyu had demanded they wear the same clothes as me, even copy my hairstyle exactly. Liu Ruyan flipped through the photos, her fingers freezing. In one, Chu Mingyu held a belt, whipping a young man who looked eerily like me, his face lit with a sick mixture of pleasure and envy, venting his hatred for me through this twisted ritual while feeding his own warped ego. And there was more. The investigators' final, encrypted report. Lu Corporation's core technology assets had, just the night before, been transferred by Chu Mingyu, using the highest level authority she'd granted him, entirely into a shell company in the Cayman Islands. All that remained on Lu Corporation's books now was a pile of debt on the verge of exploding. The file slipped from her hands and hit the floor. Liu Ruyan clutched her chest, a broken, anguished sound tearing from her throat. The fire of her past life and the betrayal of this one wove together into one rusted, blunt blade, grinding her soul to pieces. She had mistaken a bloodsucker for true love, poured everything she had into keeping him fed, while with her own hands she'd shattered the legs of the one man in this world who'd truly have died for her, and driven him straight into an inescapable hell. Jibata, I'm so sorry. She curled up on the hospital bed, clawing at the sheets, sobbing uncontrollably, like a stray dog with its spine ripped out. At the same time, in the top floor office of Daybreak Technologies, I stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, gazing out at the dazzling night skyline. Surakshu leaned back on the sofa, fingers flying across a tablet screen. Chu Mingyu's noticed Liu Ruyan's investigating him. He's preparing to run. Doesn't matter. I've already used my connections to freeze his overseas accounts completely. I turned around, a cold glint rising in my eyes. A cornered dog will bite back. The lesson of my broken legs from my past life is carved into my bones. I refuse to fall into the same hole twice. He's already put out a 50 million bounty in the underground network. Surakshu stood, walking over to me, a flicker of bloodthirsty excitement crossing her eyes. Target, you and me. Tonight, midnight, a villa on the outskirts of the city. He's rounded up hired killers, ready to move. I laughed coldly, drawing the pure black military knife from my waist, spinning it in a quick flourish at my fingertips. Then, let's shut the doors and let the dogs loose. Midnight, the villa on the city's outskirts. Wind howled, tree shadows shrank back. 3 unmarked vans pulled up silently outside the back wall of the villa's rear garden. A dozen-plus masked men, armed with machetes and high-voltage stun batons, scaled the wall and headed straight for the master bedroom. Move it. The client said break the man's legs, tie up the woman and bring her. The lead man, his face scarred, lowered his voice and kicked open the master bedroom door. Empty. I sat in the shadows at the top of the second-floor staircase, flipping a lighter between my fingers. Warrior lay at my feet, a low growl rumbling in his throat, eyes locked on the intruders. Scarface froze for a second, then roared, brandishing his blade. Cut him down! Before the words even finished, every floodlight in the villa snapped on at once, blinding, and dozens of fully armed guards in black poured out from every direction, gun barrels leveled straight at the would-be killers. Surakshu, dressed in a sleek black tactical suit, descended the stairs unhurried, a blood-grooved, telescoping baton in hand. You sewer rats really thought you could touch my people? She rolled her neck, swung her arm down. Break them. In under 3 minutes, the fight was over. A dozen-plus assassins lay howling in pools of blood, limbs broken, the thick smell of blood hanging in the air. I walked up to Scarface, planted a foot on his chest, and pressed the knife to his carotid artery. "Where's Chu Mingyu?" Scarface wet himself on the spot, voice shaking. At the abandoned dock in the Eastern District. He's leaving the country tonight on a smuggling boat, 2 a.m., the Eastern District dock. The sea wind carried a heavy, fishy stench. Chu Mingyu, clutching a black combination lock briefcase, paced anxiously across the pier, dodging capture. The engine of a speedboat had just started roaring in the distance when several powerful searchlight beams tore through the darkness, pinning him in place. 5 police cars screamed in, sealing off the dock. Surakshu and I stepped out of an SUV. Gee bada! Chu Mingyu's legs gave out. He dropped to his knees on the ground with a thud, the briefcase spilling open, bundles of cash and gold bars scattering across the dock. Embezzlement, large-scale fraud, hiring assassins for murder. I walked up to him, looking down at him, cowering like a leaf in the wind, and laughed coldly. Chu Mingyu, spend the rest of your life reflecting behind bars. No, you can't arrest me. I'm Liu Ruian's fiancé. This is a setup! Chu Mingyu screamed like a lunatic, crawling backward desperately. 2 officers stepped forward and clapped ice-cold handcuffs onto his wrists. Behave, one officer said, kicking the back of his knee, forcing him upright. Chu Mingyu was dragged to the police car, screaming like a pig headed for slaughter, the sirens wailing, tearing apart every last one of his sweet dreams. 3 days later, torrential rain poured down. The TV news scrolled its headline on repeat. Liu Corporation officially declares bankruptcy following collapse of cash flow and loss of core assets. Chairwoman Liu Ruian's assets frozen by court order. I sat on the leather sofa in the villa's living room, warrior curled obediently by my slippers. Surakshu walked over with 2 cups of warm mulled wine, handing me one, her eyes drifting toward the floor-to-ceiling windows. She's here. I carried my glass to the window. Beyond the black iron gate, Liu Ruian stood soaked to the bone. No umbrella, the designer suit that had once symbolized her power and status caked in mud, hair plastered messily against her pale face. The once untouchable, unrivaled top businesswoman of Jinghai City now looked like a beggar, clinging to the iron gate before sinking to her knees, facing the villa's front door. Thud. She bowed her head down hard, her forehead striking the rain-soaked stone paving, splashing mud everywhere. Bada. I was wrong. Please, I'm begging you, see me just once. The wind and rain howled, but they couldn't drown out her raw, desperate wailing. Thud. Another bow, blood mixing with the rain streaming down her face, gut-wrenching to watch. I remember everything now. The fire in my past life. You were the one who saved me. I was blinded by that animal Chu Mingyu. I was a fool to ever hurt you. Please, forgive me. Let's start over. I'll do whatever you say. I'll serve you like your own ox, your own horse. I watched all of this coldly, tipped my head back, and drained the wine in my glass. Then I picked up a black umbrella from the entryway.